Karibu sana. Thank you, Bona Boss Onyina. Thank you for coming. You'll be helping us look at grief and loss and how someone is supposed to be able to deal with it. Some of the do's and don'ts they're supposed to embark on and how to go about it. It's usually a very difficult time when someone loses their loved ones or they lose in different ways. Loss is not an easy thing to deal with. Please tell us what is grief and loss?
Whenever loss occurs, people lose the deceased, but at different levels. What normally determines the level of grieving or the magnitude of the loss to an individual is actually the attachment. How are you attached? Because it is possible you can lose even your own father, but if that attachment was not there, especially the emotional attachment, because lack of emotional attachment is what we call emotional cutoff. So if there was emotional cutoff, it doesn't really have a bigger magnitude into such a person. But someone who was very close, even if there was no blood relation, you still feel it very deeply. Loss is that state of being deprived of something or someone very, very dear to you. Then it is actually a permanent thing. A loss is a permanent thing, especially loss as a result of death. So when we talk of grieving, we are talking of this emotional and psychological pain that a person goes through whenever a person is deprived of something or someone who was very dear, who was very valuable to the person. So when we talk about loss, it is that sense of being deprived. And when we talk about grieving, this is now the emotional and the psychological pain. Sometimes there's also physical aspect of it that a person goes through in reaction to the loss. Yeah.
Are there different types of grief?
It is the levels that are different. Grieving is grieving, but the levels are different. But in either cases, always it is very healthy and it is very much encouraged that you need to grieve fully.
In our tradition, African tradition, we usually say when you cry, you're weak. Is it the case when you're grieving?
Actually, crying is the best way of expressing because emotions are not tangible. That is the best way to express the emotional build-up that is internal.
How about people who don't express themselves through crying?
All right.
Does it mean they're not experiencing the same pain of loss?
It is a question of postponing the feeling. Postponing, they are trying to avoid coming in touch with the reality because the reality is they are also paining.
Is there a right or wrong time frame to deal with grief?
I would say the most appropriate time to grieve is immediately it happens. Reality dawns, especially at the point of burial, when now this person is now the corpse are now being buried outside there. That is when the reality dawns that this person will never set his feet again in this house.
Is there a duration?
Grieving is not a spontaneous thing. Grieving is a gradual thing. And now depends with the individual. There are those factors like the personality. And again, also depends with the level of attachment and the role of the deceased.
This brings me to the question, what are some of the changes you will notice from a person who's grieving?
The person would want to sit alone. Many a times, sitting around the people and people are chatting because the truth is, whether someone who you love so much dies, it's not the end of life. Life continues. And then there's also that element of anger. Yes, there's a lot of imbalance in the emotions, and most of the time it feels like I really don't want to talk. And sometimes you find yourself overreacting unnecessarily. Others, they also go through temporary memory loss. Others also go what we call temporary amnesia. Sometimes also occurs. And also the nightmares, what we call the nightmares.
Is there a typical response to loss?
People respond differently, but what is actually very important, you are not supposed to judge how someone responds to loss. But what is supposed to be done, because some people temporarily they lose the meaning of life and they expose themselves to danger. Remove any gadget that may cause harm. Any exposure to danger, make sure you take control. But let people grieve anyhow. Some people will roll down, just encourage them to roll down. Some will scream. Like in my place, even men will really scream. You find me grieving, sometimes you'll be surprised. Yes, because I let it out in a loud voice, very healthy. But there's no standard way of grieving.
How do you handle grief if you're the parent?
So it is always important to let the children also know that a loss has occurred in the family. But the difference is the language that you use in them should be different from the language that is used in adults. Because remember, the essence here is to pass on the concept of loss, maybe as a result of death. What is death? Use the appropriate language to the appropriate age group. But as I started saying before, even you as an adult, it is important to cry.
There is complicated grief and there is depression. What do they share symptoms?
This is when it's a condition that occurs when there was an initial grief and this grief was not dealt with. Then another major loss, yes, a loss occurs and then no proper grieving takes place. Then another major loss occurs on top. So the person loses the touch with self and changes completely. And this is the person who, most of the time get into severe depression. A complicated grief easily attracts depression, major depression.
This brings me to asking you to share with us some of the tips that can be able to benefit people who are coping with grief.
So the tips are: 1, cry and cry it out. Cry it aloud. You don't cry while holding in. Cry it aloud. 2, do not start reasoning with death. Don't be logical when you're expressing your emotions, or especially cases of death. Yes? Be a little bit illogical. Cry it out carelessly. This is going to help you. And then the third thing, talk about it. Talk about it frequently. And when you are talking about it, call it by name. Call it by name. Another thing, yes, confront the things you used to do together. Like, for example, if you are the wife, would you please go to the wardrobe and, the clothes are there, the photos, yes? Watch them. Go through, kama kuna album, if it is something digital, watch them. Watch those, yeah, and talk about them. Let those memories flow frequently, yes? And then identify a support system. Identify a support system. And then the last thing, make sure you take good care of yourself. That is the time you need to eat the balanced diet. Yes? Create time for a little exercise.
You're going to have bad days for no apparent reasons. You're grieving. Take your time. You have lost. Let no one tell you how long you should take, as we have heard it from the professional that grieving is personal. At the same time, be safe in some of the things you engage in. Do not numb your pain. Express it. If left untreated, if left unexpressed, grief can develop to more complications. What you need to do is get a support group, surround yourself with people who care, and you will eventually get over it. It's not easy. Sio rahisi. You can do it. You can also engage in some of the things that your loved ones loved to do, so that you can feel that you're still doing some of the things or causes that they would have supported. That way it will help you. If you feel it is not going away, we have professional counselors that can be able to steer you through your difficult time.